And I think God wants us to talk about sex today, but you're saying, nope.
I'm saying not today.
Not in a headspace. It's kind of like when we have sex. Not in a headspace until you are, ooh, the whole way. And I'm like, why did you fight it in the first place? But if you want to talk about faith, I'm here for it.
Well, it's kind of hard to go from sex to faith. So I don't know if that's a great way to.
Really? Maybe when you orgasm, you're the closest to God you're ever going to be. Surrender, submittal, letting go.
Maybe.
Right? That's why you say, oh God. For me, I had a much different relationship with any higher power or something bigger than me or just faith in things working out, universe, source, God, anything. You, different, although we have similar backstories.
Yeah, but I was raised much more strict Catholic than you. I don't think you, like I went to a private school.
A private Catholic school.
A private Catholic school, went to church twice a week, once on Fridays with school, Sundays with the family. My entire extended family on both sides was Catholic.
This is also like a cultural thing, not because I'm an Italian, raised by, people who were born in Italy.
Yeah, and I'm mostly Irish.
And so different, and also New Yorker versus Midwest, right? So I'm sure our experience, and you were like Midwest in the country. Yeah. Different experience. So when did that stop? When your parents got divorced? Or?
Yeah, so let's see. At 5th grade, I went to me and my best friend at the time, Kelly, talked our parents into letting us go to a public school. And so once we were able to go to a public school, we didn't have to go to church as much. I mean, I still had to go to church, but that's right when my parents got divorced. And I remember the story as like the church didn't want them to come to church anymore because they were getting divorced, but that could have just been a story my parents kind of made.
A little way out.
And so I did get confirmed. I had my sacrament of confirmation, and that was like, I think the last time I went to church in a Catholic church. And then I went on an entire like journey.
So why don't you talk about that? Because it's super interesting.
Yeah. So after that,
you went on like almost like a tour of every type of faith out there, right? Like
a lot of them. Yeah.
You were searching for something at that point.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't really tour like a lot of different. There's a lot of religions. I still want to know.
One where like they were in tongues and like the whole thing.
Yeah. So that was a non-denominational Christian.
Denominational.
Yeah. Whatever. Whatever the fuck is.
Non-dominator.
But so a couple of my friends also had, like, my best friend at the time, Alex, her family was really religious, but in that Christian faith, not in Catholic faith. And so I really started kind of like us together, me and Alex started really experimenting and looking at what that faith looked like and tried that on. And so I would go to all sorts of churches, and yeah, they would speak in tongues and they would like bless people, and the people would fall and start shaking, and they'd talk in different language, and it was wild. And that led me to go on a mission trip when I was 15 to Dominican Republic. So we went for 14 days, and it was like, I don't know, probably 25 of us or something, my youth group. And we were there for 14 days, and it was an entire experience. We actually went to a funeral in the Dominican. It was like an 8-hour thing.
Didn't Alex get like really sick?
Alex ended up getting a parasite when she got back. And it was wild because after I came back from that, a lot of like family weird things happened, like literally from the time I stepped foot off the plane. And then there was a snowball effect with all this crazy stuff that happened in my personal life. But yeah, so when I first moved to Vegas, I was still going to church. So I went to Canyon Ridge Christian Church up in North Las Vegas. And
I remember the first.
I think I took you, yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, I think the first time I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. This is like a Christian rock concert. And they were talking about relationships. And then when I went back and it was Jesus, 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 I'm like, I'm out. Yep.
Well, and I think the part that turned you off was it was a really good conversation. And then they started talking a lot about money and about how you should,
give money to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was so in it that I have a tattoo of a cross on my back.
With wings. It looks like Aerosmith.
Pretty much.
Very classy.
Yeah. And then, just even before you, I was already kind of like questioning what spirituality meant. Like, I really liked the community of a church. I loved the, like, it was fun. Like, the songs were fun. It was fun to sing and know everything.
A lot of great tradition and culture and sense of belonging. There's so many beautiful things about it.
And so many great messages. Like, really, truly, like, it depends on obviously the leader of whatever kind of church or service you're going to, but so many good messages and so much love. And like, I went to, I was in tech when I was at school.
What's that?
So tech is it's a Catholic, like kind of like a retreat of sorts for kids at a certain age. And you go through this whole weekend, and it's this whole spiritual, religious like weekend. And at the end of it, like there's this whole, like your family comes together, and it's a lot of crying, and it's a lot of like self-realization. And that was really powerful for me. I think at the time my brother was like completely not, like he was like, I'm not into any of this. And I think they brought him in and we had this conversation.
It's almost like an intervention.
Kind of, yeah. And then I went to like I would go to Christian concerts. And I mean, like, be in a room with 30,000 teenagers singing Christian music. Like, the energy of that place is something that you don't find. The only other time I've ever felt that energy is at Tony Robbins events. It's wild. But yeah, so my journey has been crazy. And then since then, it starts with us.
No, there's some things about, like, I knew the whole story, but not in this frame. So I'm trying not to sit here, like, this is like where I'm sure people listening or watching there's the judgment, right? Right off the bat, they don't know where we're going with it. Like, are they into religion? Are they not? Like, there's so much, there's so much energy around it.
Totally.
Right? They don't even know, like, are they going to say they're in, like, they have faith, and what kind of faith? And there's a lot of emotion towards this. I don't want to like stereotype the two of us, but we really do fit some of these stereotypes. Like, you're out in the country in the Midwest, and mine is kind of stereotypical too, right? I had the grandma, the nonna, who only spoke Italian and lived in the church. Like, everything was God. Like, the first thing she asked you when you saw her was like, did you go to church? My dad was like, say you watched it on TV, right? Mm-hmm. But it was an expectation. We were like very traditional Catholic, midnight mass, Sunday mass, get dressed up. He was raised that way. My father. My mother wasn't as much into it. And, my parents been divorced since I was 3, so I never was.
Well, your mom's mom was Jewish.
She was Jewish, but even she converted. Not converted, but like didn't really celebrate. Yeah. Because she was with my grandfather, who was Catholic, right? Yep. So a lot of my influence came from my father. And even they had this very interesting, my dad and his parents, way about it. Because my grandmother was lefty. Mm-hmm. And my father's lefty, and 3 of his brothers and sisters were lefty. 4 out of the 5 were lefty. And in the Catholic Church, the old school Catholic Church, being lefty was a sign of the devil. So the nuns would beat her left hand. Mm-hmm. Into actually becoming a righty, because that's how hardcore it was. And so she was like, you're not going to Catholic school, to all of my aunts and uncles and my father. Mm-hmm. But yet my grandfather was like, you're going to church. So he would take all the kids to church. My dad and I had this weird thing. Like, he wanted me to go, but he was weird about it. Now, and here's the crazy thing. I lived 2 houses down from my church. So it was my house, a house, and then a church, St. Sylvester's, right? And so I had very weird interactions with the priests, because we would use their parking lot to play sports in the back. Where like we had horses, so the trail would like go behind my neighbor's yard into the parking lot that went super back in the church. So I connected. Well, the priest used to always yell at us, like always. So I always had that weird...
Yeah, you already had the association.
Yeah, I was always in trouble. There was some cool priests, like Father Joe was awesome, I remember him. But everyone else was like, no good. And so on the property, I went to religious instructions, right? And so I had to go, same thing. We did the big communion when I was 9, and I had to go for confirmation. Well, one year, I had religious instruction at Friday night at 5 o'clock. And all my friends were at the movie theater, and I had to go to religion. I was pissed off. Like, I would have my father in the car waiting ready to take me up the street to the movies. Yeah, I was just annoyed. And then I'll never forget, there was this boy, Brian Piccolo. And Eddie, my buddy Eddie, my brother, even though he's not my real brother, but he's my brother. We were in religious instructions together. And we got our Bibles out, we're reading, we're in a basement. And he kept calling me Tina. And I said, call me Tina one more time and I'm going to kick your ass.
Yeah.
And of course, Eddie being the ultimate, like, peacekeeper. He's like, Dave. And Brian Piccolo looks at me and goes, Tina. I said, your ass is mine. Religious instruction ends. We go out. I remember there was like this little courtyard and this beautiful little tree. And I'm fighting Brian Piccolo on church grounds. Mrs. Tuttle's going, on God's ground, you're fighting. And I was like, Miss Tuttle. Okay. I remember her name. I can't believe I remember her name. And so that was kind of my thing. So confirmation went. Did I, what is it when you confess, right? Did one confession. I never went back.
Oh, I had to do confession all the time.
I was out. And so it coincided with, my dad and I went into the city. I don't know if it was Easter or Christmas. And we were going to go to church before we showed up to my aunt's house and my grandma's house. The cathedrals, other cathedrals in New York are like the ones in Europe, some of them. They're the most gorgeous things you've ever seen. And they're packed, especially on those days, like standing room only. And we're in there and there's this, it all depends, like you said, on the father, like who's the priest. And we had one. My dad was like, real red face. He liked his sacrament for sure. And he was like, and for all of you that just come on Easter and Christmas, you could leave now. And my father, he's a chill, older, kind, loving man now, but he has an intensity that I get that from. He's like, we're out of here. Basically like, I'm out.
They don't want us here. We're not staying. Yep.
And so we were out. We never went back, and he never made it an issue again. That led me to where I'm at. I never really thought about it again. Like, I always get confused between agnostic and atheist. So I was somewhere between agnostic and atheist, where like, I don't know if one exists versus there's nothing.
Yep.
Right? And so, coincided with the 90s, which were like a little bit of a dark time, right? The music, the thing. And then I moved out here and I really didn't think about it again.
Yeah.
And, I went through my mom when she moved to Texas. I don't know if she was just wanted, like, there's a lot of Methodists and Baptists.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, like, I go and visit her for the first time. We're already dealing with the fact that she lives in another state. She's forcing me to get dressed up to go to church, this Baptist church. And if for someone who's not Baptist, that's another world too, right? I was just being a shitty kid, and I was like, you're just faking being a Baptist, and just another war. So there wasn't really a lot of great experiences for me through the church.
Yeah.
Right.
And it was similar with me. Like, the school that I went to, the principal was a priest, and some of the teachers were nuns. Like, my 4th grade teacher was a nun. Pretty sure she didn't have a teaching degree. Yeah. Because what we did was we rewrote the Bible, like, my entire 4th grade. You know what I mean? Yeah. And there was a lot of pain, a lot of things that were unspoken in that culture. And going on to our story is, like, I definitely always kept faith, but not in the way I was taught to at all.
Yeah. So then we meet, right? And so this is how kind of like relationships and marriage come into play. Neither one of us were like so set on a certain religion that we wanted to get married with, or even, we talked about it a little bit on how to raise our kids. Like, if your Aunt Lori didn't marry us, we probably wouldn't have even had any religion part of it. But she's
an Episcopalian priest.
Which is a very approachable religion, right? Yeah. But it actually was pretty cool, because I love your Aunt Lori, and there was the tradition of tying the knot. We didn't even know. So I guess the tradition goes like this: like, you put your hands together and they wrap this, like,
the thing that they wear over them. They take that and they actually wrap like an actual
like the scarf
knot.
or whatever it's called, and they wrap it around, tying the knot and putting us together, which was nice. It was a nice tradition, and it didn't take away. And I think we were all cool with it that day. But I don't know if you remember, but when we had Ella, there was some drama around whether or not we were going to baptize her. Because in New York, it's like, you think it's like the movie The Godfather. Being the godfather is like, the godmother is a big deal. Everyone's in suits and you're throwing a huge party, and like like it's almost like the one year birthday. Like we go all out. There's money, there's alcohol, there's food. I mean, you think someone's getting married. So my dad doesn't really like insert himself into this stuff, but he was not happy.
Yeah,
I forgot about your parents.
My entire family was not happy. My mom could care less because she stopped going to church when they got divorced too. My dad definitely cared more, but it was kind of just my extended family. Like, you know, I think a lot of people were confused on why we wouldn't have baptized him. My family doesn't communicate all that much.
There's a lot of stoicism in the Midwest.
So it wasn't like people were talking or asking about it, but I just knew that it was kind of, yeah. Yep. And then I remember
the heathens of us out here in Vegas.
Yeah, and I do remember going to dinner one time, I think with my sister and my dad and my brother, and they said they had asked about when Ella's baptism was, and I was like, yeah, we're not doing that. And then it was just like I just punched them all in the face. They were kind of like, wait, what?
Yeah, you know, and this is kind of where we're getting to, right? Like a lot of this is thoughts in hindsight, right? Like I've evolved so much on these things with a different frame of mind. But I remember thinking back then, how could something so pure and so beautiful like this daughter of mine be conceived with sin? Right? I needed such a reframe. Like, is this really original sin? It's like, this is you delivering Ella was like, looking back, was probably the first time I was like willing to consider a God again.
Exactly. It
like,
did the opposite.
Yeah.
It wasn't a God-fearing thing. It was a God like loving thing. Like, here's a new life. You know what I mean?
I was like, this is the most beautiful, pure thing I've ever experienced. This love is so unconditional. You want to believe in God? Have kids. Like that was kind of like the beginning of that. And I was like, I also don't like to be told what to do, right?
Yeah, you don't do well with authority.
I don't, and that was one of the things, like if people are preaching to me in a way that's not inviting, like using it as a weapon or, you know, like.
Or judgment. Yeah,
especially like consider the source.
Yep.
Right? If you're like an alcoholic, overweight priest telling me how to live my life, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's
and you've never been married and you don't have children.
It doesn't hit well for me.
Right.
But I think I have had, I call it lowercase God, G, and like uppercase, but especially more so with faith. Like there's lowercase F and capital F.
Yep.
Right. And I've had issues with both. Whereas I believe you, I don't know if it's women in general. I don't know if it's just this wisdom or innateness because you're like the mother of the world. Like you guys have a much more innate spirituality and knowing than I think men. And not to shit on any men or to suck up to women. It's just something about it. Like we may be primal and you guys are just this serenity or something about it.
Yeah. No,
and you've had it since we've met.
I don't think I've ever lost it. I mean, I've definitely interchanged the word God throughout my journey, right? Like, so I believe in divine source, energy, that whole thing. And that's kind of even what I talk to the girls about, talk to you about. A lot of religion, a lot of where this takes place and why I just found it so interesting and why I want to go to every church just to see how they, you know, what their traditions are and what their beliefs are and everything, because I feel like it's all the same message. It's just in a different frame. Right. And I do believe, like, I would always ask, and I would ask my teachers, I was like, yeah, but like, if I was born in the Middle East, wouldn't I be Muslim? You know what I mean? And they were like, no. And I was like, yeah, that doesn't make sense to me. You know, like, or if I was born in a Jewish family, I would be Jewish. Like, it has nothing to do with me choosing God or not. It was something very, very like generational, you know? And so I was like, how can I have a journey of my own that I solely choose, that my soul chooses, that I know? And my coach talks a lot about.
But this wasn't until recent.
No, but even then.
Because you're jumping 15 years since I've met you, right? And this is within the last year. Right?
Yeah.
I'm talking about the run up to now, because where we are today
is different,
especially our individual journeys, which is ironic that we both ended up with coaches and groups that have so much spirituality. Right. And we went and got it our own ways and then came back. Yeah. Which I don't want to bury the lead here, but that's where we're getting to. Right. Yeah. And I'm just saying, like, without necessarily knowing that you were seeking it, you had it.
Yeah. 100%. I do have unwavering faith.
You do. And that's
Yeah.
like one of my biggest things. Like it's, and saying you have unwavering faith versus actually having it are two very different things. Because some of the people who claim to have that don't.
Right.
And I'm not even judging there. Like I love having the conversation. People are like, I believe, but I have my moments of weakness or my moments of doubt. Like that's a more approachable, honest conversation that I can plug into. But
Totally.
you've had this spirituality. Like even when we went and did the auras in Sedona, like you were glowing, like it was like an afro of spirituality. When mine was like red, red, red. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like intense. And looking back, when you've always been like, things are going to work out. Like no one resists more than me. No one tried to like control the future and not submit and not, you know, like not surrender and just continually resist. You have had much more flow with it. Right? I'm not saying you have unwavering faith, because there are times where you do lock up.
Yeah.
Right?
But it's still like my initial reaction. And even if I get out of that, I go back to like, even with things that are happening in the world now, I'm like, okay, like there's something greater that's to be learned from this, you know?
Yeah.
That's honestly the only way I can think. Otherwise I will spiral and go completely in the other direction.
I think it's a little bit of your personality too, because I see just, I mean, Gigi's personality still isn't fully developed. So we don't know how. She's just perfection now, like wild ball of energy, right?
Yeah.
But Ella and Lola are developed.
Yep.
And Ella has that same way that you do, and Lola has the same way I do.
I don't know. I think Lola's the
She's
opposite.
more willing to have like the conversation with God, but she worries about things that she's trying to control.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? Where Ella's like, it'll work out.
That's fair.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's not even necessarily like a nurture thing. It's a nature thing. Like they were just born that way.
Totally.
Right? They're like, can't blame it on your parents. Can't blame it. Like Ella's like you and Lola's like me.
Yep.
Right? That's as genetic as you can get.
That's why Gigi's perfect, because she's a mix of both of us.
It would make her very fucking dangerous. That's for sure. If
She
be
is
it's like the
dangerous. She's
chosen
already
child.
dangerous.
Oh my God. That is quite
It's gonna be interesting.
formidable person. But well, let's go back to them, right? So this is how wild we are. Just on our school choices alone, how even though we weren't like organized religion, how all three of our girls went to a Jewish preschool. And not just Jewish. Like
they speak like Gianna speaks Hebrew in a lot of different things.
And I get so upset. They make me wear the yarmulke every time.
Just wear a hat.
It just doesn't look good on my bald head.
It looks weird.
Although all the Jews consider me a Jew, which is wild too.
Yeah.
Because my mother's mother was Jewish, and in that, like, so I'm actually technically a Jew, which I always thought I was Russian or Ukrainian, right? Because I'm 3/4
You are
of the
Russian. You're Russian Jew.
Well, there's actually when the Ukraine and Russia were together, and I'm from the Ukrainian part, so I'm actually Ukrainian, which is even more interesting because I thought I was Russian the entire time, right?
Oh.
And then when you do 23andMe, it's like you're an Ashkenazi Jew. So like I already have that built in, but I'm 3/4 Italian and raised Catholic, right? Which is just wild how this all goes. So they go to this school, and we really don't fight it. We embrace it.
No, totally embrace it. It's a great school. They're learning great things. Like, I think it's the cutest thing ever when they pray in Hebrew. But
which the Jewish religion is a beautiful religion, and especially the deeper you go into it. Yeah.
And they're very inclusive. They're very, like, I've never felt judged by a Jew. And we have so many Jewish friends.
They're judging you, for sure.
Shut up.
You're a Gentile. You're not part of the clan.
I don't know. I feel the love. I feel the love from all my Jewish friends. But no, I think it's a really inclusive school. It's like, you know, their traditions are beautiful. Like,
so then we went to nothing, just a school on its own, private. Yep. Then we were at a very open school where the inmates ran the asylum, right?
Yeah, like, that was a very progressive, and we're fairly progressive.
When it comes to that, I was like, my kids are way too strong. They're going to take over the whole world. Yeah. And now we're at a very
Lutheran.
It's Lutheran, but it feels very Christian.
Well, that's what that is.
Yeah, we pray they pray before everything.
They go to chapel.
It's big time.
Yeah, they pray, they sing. I mean, their mission statement is everyone's
saved, something like that.
Everyone welcome, everyone save, or something like that.
We're wonderful parents when it comes to that shit.
I know.
Yeah.
They're learning some great things. Like, you know, she had I helped Lola with a religious part of her homework yesterday for religion class. And there were a couple questions where I was like, I'm going to push back on that. But the rest of it was great. You know, I was like, okay, this makes sense.
And so I think like we kind of lucked out with that. Like, it's a really interesting game when like someone's Jewish and someone's Catholic or someone's Mormon and someone isn't, like, because then you're like really held back. Like, you got to marry a Jewish girl, you got to marry a Muslim man, you got to marry, like, that's when it becomes an issue. And I think where we have done it right a little bit by accident or luck is that we've been very open to it and not like, no. I mean, maybe at one point, like if someone's trying to shove God down my throat, I'm resistant. You know what I mean?
I think that it's the approach, right? But I think we're very curious. Like, I had some clients that were Mormon, that were incredibly Mormon. And I was just like...
the nicest people in the world.
And I was just so curious to like learn. Like, I'm like, wait a minute. Like, and I'm probably sound ridiculous asking the questions I was asking, but she was like, bring them on. Like, she wanted to share. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things about every religion, and that's why like
even in the Mormon religion, I think the mission is the best
amazing
thing.
Like
I don't know if I'd want to like go learn a language and try to sell the Mormon religion to convert people, but like all my Mormon friends that can speak another language, they're out on their own. Like, I was like, there's a world where I can like take that and like somehow make it work just for my kids, right?
Right.
Like, there's things, if you're open, that you could take. It's just the stereotypes. Even Scientology, like everything, I think was started with very interesting things.
Totally.
So
and
being
there's so many.
Is a huge thing.
Yeah, it's being curious, and I think that you could take something from every religion and benefit your life and your soul journey.
So I think what we're saying is soul journey is a good one, actually.
Yeah.
I think what we're saying is religious choice.
Yeah.
And I feel like I know, when you force kids to do something, it's a different game, right? When Ella started faith 2 years ago, my worst fear came true immediately for like a minute. She was like, I think I want to get baptized. And I wasn't like, I could care less if she wants to get baptized. But I was like, if she just wants to get baptized to fit in, I was like, that's not the reason. I remember saying to her, I was like, if you go read the Bible and you go learn everything about it and you want to be baptized, I will go with you and do it.
Yep.
I will support it. I'll throw you a party. I'll do the whole thing. That's the thing. Like, to me, like, baptizing as renewal, as rebirth, as a choice, I think is a reframe of the most beautiful thing, to the point where I'm like, I could be down for that. And I don't even think, as I'm getting deeper into religion again and just spirituality, I don't even think being baptized should be a one-time thing. I think you have to be dunked and renewed multiple times. Like, it's not like, and I'm probably butchering this, so if I don't know my Bible, but like, this is my interpretation, right? I want to be cleansed and rebirthed and reminded and connected multiple times. Like, I don't think it's just one time and like, I'm good.
Yeah, totally.
Right? And so I think this is the reframe that we've come full circle with. We went from reluctant Catholics to having 4 books of the book Conversations with God and reading it out loud and talking about religion with our kids, because that's quite the jump.
Well, yeah, I mean, just most recently, it's been, it's just more of a spiritual journey, right? So it's being connected with people that speak the same language and that are willing to have a conversation about it, right? Like, there's so many people that are just not willing to have the conversation, right? It's one of the forbidden things to talk about, religion and money and politics,
sex,
you know?
Everything's forbidden nowadays.
Well, that's fair.
No one will talk the truth.
But we've put ourselves in these communities of people that want to have the conversation, that are open and willing to have the conversation. And the people in the container are willing to like be curious and ask questions and not judge about what that looks like. Like,
even you, like the aliens and things like that, right?
Totally. Like, I'm
psychedelics.
Right? I'm in a group
plant medicine.
You know, my coach specifically, she believes that she's a Pleiadian and that she's otherworldly, and it's interesting because even though for so many people that seems like, okay, you lost me there, right? For me, I'm like, let me ask questions. Let me get curious about this. Like, what does that mean for you? How does that show up in your life? Like, and I've learned so much from her in that frame that helps me with my own journey. Right. And now I don't believe that I'm a Pleiadian. I believe that we all came from the galaxies and the stars and the cosmos, but I haven't done the research or I don't have that knowledge that she has to believe that, but I know that what she has and how she shared it has helped me on my spiritual journey, right? And even the other people in my group, like
wait. How she shared it.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. Like even our friend Azim, like he's very Christian, and he's like, I just love my conversation because he's like, one way is you build a fence around your religion, you either in or out, and one way is you build a well and you invite people in.
Yeah.
That approachability is what makes all the difference in the world. Rather, because I can understand people feel persecuted. I mean, every religion's been through it, right?
100%.
And they're like, well, you know, I want to fight back. I get it. But like, that defeats the purpose in the first place.
Right.
Every single religion across the board, every single belief system within that realm
right.
is love, invitation, connection, community, right? And I think people lose sight of that a little bit. So I didn't want to cut you off, but you said the way she shared it was a big thing for you.
It's a huge thing. And then, you know, even the kids being in the environments that they're in right now, right? Like them asking questions. Like part of the problem I think I had with religion, like organized religion growing up, is I kept asking questions and nobody had answers.
That's fair.
Right? Like I was like, well, you're having me say this prayer, but can you explain what this prayer actually means? Well, no, that's not something we don't need to, you know, you don't question God.
Yeah, there was a regurgitation of it. It was like a blind faith, right? And taking especially the Bible at face value, like
literally,
not looking at literal, like not looking at it as a metaphor for a lot of things, or there's reading between the lines and seeing like,
or that it was also written so long ago that, okay, hello, things have changed.
And interpretation.
You know what I mean? Exactly.
Yeah, which is this is, you see, for me, like with my coaching, it was your own interpretation is your own scripture. Mm-hmm. So like if I sat down and read the Bible and the Quran and all the different places, all the things and life experiences, and then wrote down what I took from it.
Right.
That could be the book of David.
And that's your scripture.
That's my scripture. Yep. That's my interpretation. And if enough people believe my interpretation, there's a religion. It's wild, right?
Yeah.
But maybe it was always supposed to be like that. And having like someone like my coach and reading Conversations with God and reading Course in Miracles and things like that, like just considering a different perspective.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I want you to mention and talk about is something that you've been doing that has kind of gotten you on this journey and this path, right? And it's a stack.
So my main coach, Garrett White, he got this idea from Conversation with God.
Okay.
So the book Conversation with God, I think for anyone having curiosity or struggle or just looking for something with faith, it's a great book to read because the premise is this guy is like feeling disconnected. He doesn't feel connected to God. He doesn't feel any faith whatsoever. And he's journaling and he just asks God a question. And the way he says it is his pen got taken over by God and God responded. Mm-hmm. And the book is the conversation between him and God. And the things that came out in God's like voice is wild. It makes so much sense. It's so divine. And it's really, really approachable for people who are
in any religion.
It's instead of God fearing, it's God loving.
Right.
It takes it. If anything, it shows how science proves more so.
Right.
That there's something greater.
And a lot of people in the spiritual world would call it light language or something like that, like channeling through another.
For me, it made me feel more connected to source. And if I want to call it God, it made me feel more connected to everybody else. It made me feel not alone. And this feeling of faith and this feeling of like, you know, being able, because I'm an intelligent man, you're an intelligent woman. Like people are not dumb to be able to be like, wait a minute, time, space, continuum, and quantum physics. Everyone's interpretation in the books, energy, source. Even some people have theories that aliens are really angels and people can't tell the difference between them, right? Is plant medicine a way to get to
other realms or
get closer to God or source faster?
Right.
Are we truly in the Matrix? And is the Matrix just the time-space continuum?
Yep.
So like rather than like segment out and like, this is the only way, you start looking at all the possibilities of how it all connects. And then the game becomes really interesting. Now you're looking at the Bible from like this wanting to understand it, interpreting it in such a different way, right? New ways of looking at it, curious what other people are interpreting it at, and these like open-minded conversations about something that we don't know.
Yeah.
It becomes fun. And like, for instance, for me, someone who has like fought and resisted and felt so alone, like you could feel alone surrounded by people, like to feel like there's God or source or energy with me or soul with me all the time.
Yeah.
It's so freeing. It almost feels like I'm an evangelist or evangelist. I almost feel like I'm an evangelist. Like I'm like, no, you got to understand. Like, this is what's happening.
Well, and it's the same. And that's the thing is it comes down to like, even when I was meditating often, I tell people, I'm like, I would literally walk through a desert and I would see like a cactus or a flower and I could see the vibration of the cactus and the flower and feel like the oneness with nature and with all things. And it's the same thing. Like, it's hard to explain that to people when they haven't experienced it themselves or haven't tried to do the work themselves.
Well, this is where it's gotten interesting. I have some friends, like, they must be, I would think they'd be super excited that I'm going down this path. But then I tell them my interpretation and it's like, oh, no, you got it wrong. And I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
You don't have the right God and I got the wrong God. Like, we're all right. Like, you know what I mean? So even that is an interesting conversation. They got some other friends who are like, let's talk.
That's the saddest thing is like so much war and you know, destruction is based off of, well, you're right and I'm wrong. And it's like, no, nobody's right. Nobody's wrong. Like, it just is. It just is. That's it. That's the only answer.
Even in the book with Conversation with God, it's like there's only really two emotions, fear and love. Right? And the fear is what causes all the other things.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds so simple. This thing called the stack is like just another way of having this conversation with God that Neil Donald Walsh had in his book, right? And it's a process of going through, like, I want God to know, right? And then, dear God, and then you're typing. And I've read so many of them to you. And the first one went like this: I don't believe in you. And he's like, that's okay, son. I'm like, don't call me son. Like, it was,
it's wild. And like, you're saying all of these
I'm
things.
saying
you're
it, but is it coming through? And I'm doing it all in caps, like he's God, and like we're just going back and forth. And now the conversations are like so supportive and loving and unconditional and telling me, and me still resisting, and him going, nope. Like, even if it's just a game I'm playing with myself, like even if it's not real, which I believe it is, who cares, right? Like for the longest time, people say, like, do you believe in your soul? And I believe in my soul. Like, there's a thing called noetics. You know, I read a lot in one of these Dan Brown books. And in the book, I was always curious if this is a real thing, that if you're in a hyperbaric chamber when you die, right, they could measure and weigh you right at the moment you die. And there's I forgot the amount of weight that leaves your body when you die. And they're trying to say that that's your soul. That's your energy leaving your body. I thought it was fascinating, right? So I've always been curious, and I'm like, I believe in the soul. But if I believe in the soul, and I believe my energy can't be destroyed, and that's my, right, that conversation, that Untethered Soul book, which is another great way of looking at it. Like, when you say hello in your brain and the person goes, I'm here.
Yeah.
Like, that's...
It's like, who's answering?
Who's answering?
Yeah.
And so if you think that, then you got to take it a step further. And then I start thinking of interstellar with multiple dimensions, and you know what I mean? And like, all right, well, science and astronomy physics can't describe all of this.
That's the thing, is physics can actually explain the majority of all of it, I believe. It can,
but it doesn't, like...
Yeah, there still has to be faith. I agree.
The Big Bang could potentially be, and then God created light, right? There was only darkness, and then he created light. Like, there was nothing, and then there was the Big Bang. Like, you could actually go step by step, and then you even go back to the Mayans. Like, all the stories, the gods in the sky,
everything
the sun.
has so much alignment. It's just It's the frame. Even when you're talking about conversations with God, like fill in the God blank with whatever you want.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like fill it in with universe or source or divine or Lord.
Well, he does such a great job. He does Holy Trinity, and he's like, it's, past, present, future, the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Like he connects it all.
Yeah.
It could be one of the most approachable things. And then you get curious. And then take all of it out of it. Studies show people with faith live 7 years longer.
Yep. It doesn't matter what faith, but just a faith.
7 years longer. And while they're alive, they're happier. So whether it's just being willfully ignorant, who cares?
Yeah.
Like I never bought into you're going to hell if you don't believe.
Yeah, no, and I still don't. I mean, that's not anything I think I've ever thought about.
Like
I've never been worried for me to sin that I'd go to hell. I was never like, oh my God, I'm going to do this and go to hell.
And I think that's the thing, right? So with our kids, it's been interesting because when I look at us, I feel like you've been steady Eddie. Even though you haven't necessarily shared your faith and didn't name it, you've always kept it. And I went from like, nope, 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 nope. I don't want it near me, to like really talking about it a lot.
Yeah.
And I was like, I wonder what she's thinking about this, like how I'm talking about this. Like, is it foreign for you?
A little bit. I think it's more foreign because it's been something that you fought so much, and I've just kind of always been like, I knew that it would come, like, again, it's such a personal thing. Like even in my world, like sometimes I feel like I'm a Buddhist. Sometimes I'm like, oh, now I'm a whatever. Like, I just don't know. I think that we can all be everything, right?
Yeah.
Because that's just energy.
You just take my lead? Is that where you're at?
No, I don't take your lead. I mean, just because you're starting to talk about God doesn't necessarily mean I'm going, like if you wanted to go to church, I'd be like totally open to it and I would have my own interpretation. But like, I think one of the coolest things that we've talked about is taking our entire family to every single type of church that there is, just so we could be like, look, how crazy, how amazing that like there's so many people, there's so many different types of religions and beliefs and thought processes out there. Like now cultivate your own. And I will say, when I listen to your stacks, first off, I think that these are things that are very personal, but it would be so powerful if you shared them, because when you read those to me, like I get chills all over, like my energy shifts. I'm like, holy shit, that really does sound like God. That's fucking nuts, And like, these are things, like, I think you should make a book of your stacks to give to your kids.
That's a lot of guys.
You know what I mean?
A lot of guys in Warrior do it, and it's
so
awesome.
powerful.
Yeah.
So fucking powerful.
Because it's your own scriptures, your conversations.
Yeah. And it's you working through something. It's almost like a form of therapy in many, many ways.
It 100% is, because what better download can you get?
Yeah.
And
for me, looking at you and having you go through this journey, like one of the things that you just recently wrote about, you were talking in a stack, and I can't even remember what the stack was about, but I remember like looking up at you. I don't even know if you realized I said this, but I was like, you know what? I'm proud of you. And it wasn't because of what you wrote about in the stack. It was what I was proud of is that you were not feeling confident, or you were having anxiety about something or having an emotion, and you were that disciplined enough to sit down and to actually create and write the stack and work through it. Like the beauty of working through something like that is so fucking powerful.
Well, for argument's sake, just so that the people who aren't into religion or faith aren't turned off, right? Let's just say that you know the truth inside of you one way or another. And if that truth comes from soul, or comes from source, or comes from energy, or comes from God, you truly know the truth.
Yeah.
Like it's there.
Totally.
And so if you get to it, you can't hide from it. And so that conversation of truth with some things like, all right, if there is a God, how would he or she talk to me? If there is a supreme being, it would be with unconditional love. It would be with unconditional support. It would be with accountability.
Yeah.
It would also be with truth. Like, these are the things I think we all want to hear, and we don't get to hear often. Or we do hear them from people we love, but they don't hit it the same.
Yeah.
Because, they want to protect you, or there's certain things they don't want to talk about. And what I like what we're doing is, especially with both of our two older girls going to a school where they kind of force you into it, is that you know, they may be going, well, daddy is on this spirituality kick, but he's not forcing it down our throats.
Right.
Like, they'll come back and go, well, what do you think of this? I'm like, I don't agree with it. But let's look at this verse or this story from a completely different frame, from a different perspective. And then I'll be like, what if it meant this?
Yeah.
What would you think? And they're like, well, I kind of like that. I'm like, all right, great.
Go with it.
Try it on.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's because I want them to have their own path.
Right.
And my job as a parent, I believe, is giving them options.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know where they're going to end up. They're going to be influenced by the people they marry and their friends they have and the colleges they like. But the influence for me, not only do I want to just give them perspective and option, I need to live what I talk. Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, and if you want to go way down the rabbit hole, like when I look at what we're doing with the kids, like I believe that like your soul chooses your parents, right? Like I believe that whatever energy, like I chose my parents for a reason.
You're going to Brooke route, which I love. This is the energy healing and what.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like again, like this is all encompassing.
I love
and
it.
people could be like, oh, you're all over the place. Well, yeah, that's because God is all over the place.
The soul chose it for this experience.
Right.
I like that frame a lot.
And because it's all learning, right?
Yep.
But what I like about what we're doing with the girls is that like part of why I think I like rejected organized religion for a long time is because people weren't willing to have the conversation. It was like, that's not what we're here to what we are meant to do about this. And I like that we're having open conversations and not just about religion, but about everything that our kids deal with, whether it's sex or relationships or how to deal with friends,
which is all connected
or
anyhow.
how to live your life, whatever it may be. And I feel like that is such a difference of like how we were raised generationally, like that, like my grandparents.
Well, in all fairness to our parents and grandparents, I don't think they had access to this.
Well, 100%.
Right.
100%.
And these are some really cool things. Like how easy, like for instance, you're always going to blame your parents for something.
Yeah.
Right. To be able to forgive them and take it a step further and like, wait a minute, I chose them.
Yeah.
I chose this experience. Like, how could I have any anger? They did the best that they could with what they had. They were dealing with their own shit. Like, you want to talk about a godly way of thinking, a divine way of thinking of something is just forgiving and letting go. There's no loss there.
And thanking them, right?
Yeah.
Thanking them for even the bad. Like, what if my soul was on this journey where that is the lesson I needed in this moment?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
you mentioned church, and I have probably two friends that are mentioning it a lot, and maybe another two who are like, you should go to church. And I'm resisting again. And just the fact that I'm resisting and saying it out loud, I feel like I probably should go. So here's why, though. I feel like I'm at this place with God, my creator, this connection to my soul, my source, and I just don't want to fuck with it, right? I don't want to be turned off. I don't want to walk in and be like, and this is why I never came to these fucking places, right? And rather than be like open-minded and curious and be like, wow, all right, I can understand, but that's great. I love it. And just try it. I don't want to audit. I think audit's a terrible word let me audit this religion. But on the other end, I almost want to hide in the back and just experience it without being thrown in or being pushed.
The more you're comfortable, because again, you're just trying this kind of on again.
Yeah.
I think the more comfortable you are with what it means to you, and the more like unwavering you have on like your belief system, then you could step into any environment and be like, I'm going to take what 100%. I can from this and then let go of the rest, because somebody else's interpretation doesn't need to be mine.
It's easy for us to say that sitting here.
Yeah.
And you and I both know, even if we didn't take the kids, if we just slipped in after, I was talking to someone about this, they just like slip in after the beginning, go in the back. Like, I just don't want to be like that phony fuck talking. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to, because that's the other side, and I got to let go of that. I don't want to weaponize, hide behind, use it for money. Like, and I don't know what's that saying about me. I don't know why that triggers me. I probably have to get past it. But like, I'm like, I got my beautiful relationship, my conversations with God in my stack. I feel more like connected to God than I ever have. It's not even a return to God. I don't think I was ever there. Right? There was no source. It's just like, I found my spirituality. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm protecting it. So, but on the other end, I'm sure there's a whole another world that I'm not accessing.
Well, it's just tapping into everything else. And like I said, like, it's like we've gone to seminars and events all over the place and had multiple coaches, done all the things. I think if we look at it as that, right?
Yeah, that's a great way of looking at it.
And you can say, if I get one good thing out of this, then it's worth it, right? Like if there's one good lesson or one good thing, then it's all worth it. And then just leave the rest. Like,
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Well, that's not cocky, but a lot of people know us, so it's gonna be hard to hide. You know what I mean? Like, is he gonna go to a church?
But, yeah.
I just don't want people to be like, he tried a church, he doesn't like it. Like, people are very territorial about their churches. Like, I got the good church, I got the good religion, I got the this, I got the, and I'm like, we just went through. Think about what we just went through. We went through energy healing. Let's not forget we went and saw a wizard.
Yep.
Wayne the Wizard. I thought I was gonna get killed. Right. We've done true therapy. You know, EMDR, brain tapping. I have friends that are a lot in the Mormon Church. I know so much about it. Catholicism, Christianity, Judaism. Like, we're exposed to a lot of Lutheran, Episcopalian. Mm-hmm. There's so much, and we've read so many books, and we've done, well, you've done a little bit of plant medicine, but we've gone down that realm, and like, we're very open. We have like a little soup of all this
to
stuff.
be continued. That'll be an extra
To be
interesting
continued.
conversation
I definitely
after I
like-
do some journeys.
So what would you say the takeaway? You know, we're inviting people into our spiritual journey. We had the conversation before we started, like, shouldn't we talk about this and that? And I was like, I think our story alone of starting there, not being there, you know, as I think a lot of people can relate to that story. And for me, the whole takeaway for our conversation is inviting people in to be like, there's no wrong answers. Be curious, not judgmental.
And ask questions.
Try it on, right? And let it be a choice. You think you'll ever be baptized again?
I don't think so.
What if it was in a
Not
different
baptized. I don't know. Like, it
Maybe
depends
you're being
on what.
baptized during a plant medicine. Maybe that's
Potentially.
a version of it.
Potentially.
Just rebirth, renewal.
I think when I do breath work, it's
Yes.
a baptism. Like, I think that when we have conversations that are really deep and like meaningful with people, that could be like, again, I don't feel like that's the thing is like, stop defining things and like.
Yeah. So when we were talking about flow state, flow state is when you're connected to your source.
Yes.
It's really when you're connected.
Yeah.
Some people say connected to God.
Right.
So like even when you were like dancing last night, you were free. Maybe that's it. When you're
Yes.
truly free.
And it's like, if I think people could take something from this episode, it's how often can you be connected to your flow state, to your source, to your divine energy? Like, what are you doing in your life that gets you there? Me spending time with Cruz is that right now. Like,
It's not her other man or boyfriend.
my
it's her
horse. But to me, that's really grounding. That's a spiritual journey for me, right? It's being present. Like, it's me taking out of all the noise, and it's like, okay, I'm here and I'm connecting with this other life that can't communicate in words, but communicates to me in energy. And that to me is a spiritual journey for me, you know?
Well, that's even in conversations with God. You're going to see me less like hear me. You're going to feel me.
Exactly.
It's going to be an energetic thing. For me, it's more of not being alone.
Yeah.
There's something about knowing that, like, if I have
Your spirit guides and your
and my
angels
soul purpose and
yeah.
the universe has my back and it's God's plan, like, it makes me trust me, which is then in extension all of those things at such a more certain and peaceful way that I don't torture my soul.
Exactly.
And there's less suffering. And that's after 47 years, that's something that I can plug into. And without like trying to convert anybody or like it's not that I don't even care what people do. It's just
Well,
hard enough
somebody else's journey is not your own.
not only that, like, I'm here trying to figure out mine. Like, if it's interesting to you,
Yeah, exactly.
and you connect to it, beautiful.
I think the biggest takeaway out of the conversation is to take the judgment, the criticism, the expectations away from what you think religion or spirituality should be, and get curious and ask questions and have the conversation with your family, with your kids, with your friends. Like, be willing to go there, right? Like, I don't think enough people are willing to go there, because when they are, it's not only the sharing that you can give for your own journey that could help other people, but it's also just like the lessons to be learned and the knowledge and all the information. And it's just remembering that like nobody really fucking knows. And we're all here. We are all literally a part of one another, and like we should start acting like it.
And I think regardless, we're on a journey of faith, whether it's capital F or a lowercase f.
Yep.
There has to be this faith in the future being bigger than the fear, right? Like knowing and feeling like I'm protected and that the best path forward is just letting go of the things I can't control, right?
Yep.
Submitting to it and then controlling the things I can.
Yep.
That is true serenity.